Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Jenny Pokempner from the Youth Law Center. We're really excited to have you this afternoon. The bulk of our presentation today, we're going to be providing you information on the benefits of filing taxes this year for transition age youth with experience in foster care and also who have or are homeless. And we're going to really focus the time today on explaining the benefits of filing and also the different ways that you can help young people. That's going to be the focus of our session. We have some great presenters for you today. We will end the session with a review of some great materials and resources we've developed for you that you can use to spread the word and help youth file. And we're also going to have some question and answer time at the end. We encourage you throughout the session to use that question pane to the right of your screen, and we will try to get to as many questions as possible today. As I said, we have a really great panel of experts today that I'm going to quickly introduce, and then you'll hear from them throughout the session. We have Roxy Caines, who's the EITC Campaign Director from Center on Budget and Policy Priorities. We also have Barbara Duffield, the Executive Director of SchoolHouse Connections. We also have Aubrey Edwards-Luce, who's the Vice President of Child Welfare and Juvenile Justice at First Focus on Children. And we also have Anna Johnson, Associate Director of Housing and Health from John Burton Advocates for Youth. And rounding out our panel is Chris Torres, a youth advocate at John Burton Advocates for Youth. And so we're going to start the session off to really get us focused on how important it is for young people to file and the benefit it can bring them. So we're going to turn it over to Chris Torres. We're very grateful to Chris to start our session with really sharing what the impact is on young people when they are able to file their taxes this year. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Chris.
Thank you, Jenny. I really appreciate it. Hello, Chris here, Christina Torres. So I want to tell you a little bit about my experience in filing taxes. One thing's first is I didn't know that I can file my taxes when I was in foster care when I had a child because I was a teen parent. I didn't realize, I just found this out recently with Anna from J-Bay. She told me, did you know that you're able to? And I said, no, I didn't. I think it's important to know that foster youth should file their taxes. I recently filed my taxes for last year and the year before that. And I actually found out too that my experiences in filing taxes are not so different than anybody else's. Some youth didn't realize that they could. Some youth didn't know that they were able to go and redo their taxes up to 3 years. A little bit about myself is I grew up in the foster care system since the age of 6. I aged out at the age of 21. I got involved with youth advocacy and the importance. I'm advocating for taxes because it's important for youth to understand that we need our money. We work hard for our money and we need it. And I'm going to be honest with you. I filed my taxes last year and it's helped me in tremendous ways. It's helped me pay off bills that COVID impacted. It's helped me buy like beds for my kids, just different things for my household, and it really helps. And to know that you're able to do this is actually really exciting and exhilarating because I didn't know that I had to do this. I didn't know that I needed to file taxes until I was about maybe 20 when I found out, hey, you need to file taxes. Did you know that? And I didn't. It's been a really good experience, but also a bad experience because I did have my identity stolen when I was younger, and that does happen, especially to youth in foster care. And if it does happen, there are resources available for that. Another thing too is why to me, why is it important for youth to file their taxes? It shows them a sense of responsibility as well to look, I worked for my money, so I'm gonna learn how to file my taxes. Not a lot of everybody does, because I didn't know how to file. I didn't know where to go. I didn't know who to talk to until J-Babe was like, there's a Vita Center, which I didn't know. I went to the Dream Center and they helped me file my taxes for the first time back in 2020, right before COVID hit. And it was a really good experience. And I was able to get all the money that I needed. As for being a part of the foster care system, I think it's important for all youth to understand that it's okay to ask for help. It's okay if you don't understand something. That's what your resources are available. That's why we have our resources here for us, is to help us with all these things that we need help with. And taxes is a very important aspect because we all work hard for our money. We all work hours and hours and hours, and we need it back. And I understand some youth are some youth are afraid to ask for help, and that's okay. And that's just a sense of not being able, the lack of parenting and adults that tell us it's okay. And I'm telling you that it's okay. It's okay to ask for help if you don't know how to file your taxes, because I didn't know. And I asked for help through JBay, and I also helped create the resources and the outline for filing taxes, all the paperwork that you need, like your birth certificate, your ID, your social security card, your kid's birth certificate, their social security numbers. And the thing is, I didn't know that you needed all of that stuff. And I'm going to be honest with you. Like, I didn't know that you needed a certain paper. Like right now, I'm going through an issue with filing taxes because my youngest son's dad won't allow me to get his social security number, which I didn't know that you needed that. But then when I found out that I did, it's it's been difficult. And honestly, I can say that thank you for J-Bay for being there. Thank you for having all these papers and these taxes, the importance of tax, because it is important for us to file our taxes, and it is important for youth to understand that you need to file your taxes. You need to get the money that you've worked hard for, because it does help in the end, because it's helped me in so many different ways. And now I am going to pass it to Aubrey. Thank you all.
Thanks so
Thanks so
much,
much,
Chris.
Chris. And Aubrey, I'm sorry, I forgot to let people know. We Some of us will be on camera and some of us won't because of technical difficulties. So we appreciate your patience. But I will. Sorry, Aubrey, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I did forget to let people know.
No, no problem. Thanks, Jenny. And thank you so much, Chris, for sharing your story and letting us all know about your experience and helping to normalize like not knowing everything, right? And thanks for your work in creating some resources to help other young people know how to file their taxes. I think when I was your age, Chris, I wouldn't have been very interested in learning about how to file taxes. But your story really shows the connection between filing taxes and something that most everyone's interested in, which is getting money. And the message today is that filing federal tax returns can help transition age youth get the money that they need, and the money that is been made available for them because Congress has taken some steps to make sure that's even more available during the pandemic. So we're going to get more into the details of the changes in the laws that have made this money possible, but I want to make sure that everyone is aware, and Chris has shared with us that this money is real. It's real money, and it's getting into the pockets of transition age youth. And the temporary changes that have occurred through both the earned income tax credit, the child tax credit, and then the availability of the economic impact payments are offering thousands of dollars to individuals. So last year, young people in California who had foster care experience, who filed their taxes with the assistance of trained volunteer preparers, received on average like almost $3,000 in tax refunds, and so that's just one of the benefits, right? And Chris has even shared with us The fact that filing your taxes allows you to find out whether there's been any identity theft, and it helps you increase your own financial knowledge. It helps support your parenting with children and youth. It also has a lot of other benefits, like helping to maintain eligibility for public benefits. It helps establish official income, which sometimes needed for determining whether or not you're eligible for other benefits. And then it just helps establish a practice of filing taxes, which is an important thing moving forward into adulthood. So there are so many benefits, and we're going to run through just a couple of case examples of some young people whose names have been changed, right? Just some examples of how these benefits can really materialize. So here we have a case example of Jasmine, who's 20 years old, and she was in extended foster care. She lived in a supervised independent living apartment with her 2-year-old child. And she worked on and off in 2021. And she received all 3 stimulus checks, which allowed her to have $5,600 when she filed her taxes. She also was able to get an earned income tax credit. The maximum amount there allowed was $3,618, and then the maximum amount allowed for her child who was under the age of 5, just 2 years old, which is $3,600. And in total, because Jasmine has been in foster care, and these would apply for youth who would have experienced homelessness as well, and we'll get more into details of that. But the important part is the numbers in red, right? $12,818 that Jasmine was able to receive as a result of filing her taxes. That's huge. And then we have this case example of Sam. Sam is a young person who is 19 years old. Sam is eligible for this tax credit because Sam's couch surfing. Sam stayed on the couches of different friends and worked part-time during 2021 and was able to get the stimulus checks and also able to get an earned income tax credit of $1,502. So even though Sam was working part-time, still able to get that earned income tax credit. And again, that important numbers in red, $4,702 that Sam was able to get after filing their taxes. So these funds were made possible because of the American Rescue Plan and the changes that it made to the Earned Income Tax Credit. The Earned Income Tax Credit is a credit for individuals who have income for work by working. And the federal law temporarily made changes to the Earned Income Tax Credits for the 2021 tax year. It increased the payment amounts. So previously, the payment amount was lower, but now it's up for $1,500 for non-parenting individuals, and for parenting individuals, it is up to $3,618 for one child and $5,980 for 2 children. And the only requirement is that individuals had worked and earned at least $1 in order to be eligible for the Earned Income Tax Credit. That's the only work requirement. There's a couple of other requirements though, and they're here on this screen, which is that there's a minimum age of eligibility for non-parenting individuals. So if the person is not a parent, the changes were that you could now be eligible for the Earned Income Tax Credit if you were age 19, as opposed before you had to be age 25. So this is a big change, making it more fair for young people who have who've worked. And then another big change that's very important for youth who've experienced foster care or who have experienced homelessness, if they have worked, they're eligible for the Earned Income Tax Credit at age 18. They don't have to wait till age 19. And another important benefit for this group of young people is that even if they're full-time students, so they don't even have to necessarily earn that $1, right? If they're full-time students, they're also eligible for the Earned Income Tax Credit. And I'll pass it on to Anna to share more about some specifics for this tax credit.
Thank you, Aubrey, and good afternoon, everyone. So some of the nitty-gritty on the details here that Aubrey went through was that we get a lot of these questions like, is this really for me? Do I really qualify? How do I get this money? And most of the time, the answer is yes, you will most likely qualify. And here's how we kind of know that and the rules. So first, you're considered to be an unaccompanied homeless youth if you're not with your parents or a guardian. So if you've stayed at shelters, campgrounds, cars, like that couch surfing example we just had with Sam, the 19-year-old, staying in motels, or if you're receiving homelessness services funding, that counts. If you are also considered self-supporting and at risk of homelessness, if you're living on your own, including paying for your housing and expenses, and there's no other options for you if you lose that housing or you're in an unstable housing situation. So that's for youth who are experiencing homelessness or have experienced homelessness or are at risk of homelessness. And you can see that's a pretty broad general definition. So just be aware of that. This is favorable to pretty much a lot of the most common situations that unfortunately young people who are homeless experience. So this is really for you. The other thing is for foster youth or former foster youth. You're considered an eligible foster youth if you were in foster care on or after your 14th birthday for at least 1 day or more. So this eligibility rule is a little bit lower, not as kind of harsh as some of the other ones that a lot of times people are like, I don't qualify for that. But this is how you kind of know. And we can also help you understand this. If you go to a free tax appointment, you'll work with an IRS trained specialist who can also verify and make sure that you do qualify and make sure that you're filing correctly. Next slide, please. So on this next slide, and I don't know, Chris, if you want to weigh in here about your experience when you filed this year, but essentially the way that you look at this, when you file your taxes and you get to the end, there's a summary of what your tax return looks like. And box 27A shows that earned income tax credit up to $1,500 or more if you have children. And you really want to double check that it'll say how much money you qualify for in that box. You don't need to provide any additional information, but just check and make sure that there's some money listed in that box on your summary of your 1040 tax return when you file. So Chris, for you, when you filed this year, you could see this box, right? What was that like for you?
It was awesome, honestly, because being in foster care and being like, I'm going to be honest, I was in foster care for a lot of years and I was homeless at the same time. If this was available to me a few years back, I think it would have been a little bit different, honestly. Seeing how we're able, as a former foster youth, how we're able to get the extra funds that we need to help, because I'm going to be honest with you, it is really hard, especially with COVID, work and school. Some people lost jobs, some people dropped out of school. I stopped working because I had to go to school full time, and it was difficult with COVID and everything that happened. I got behind on bills, and with the extra funds, it helps bring me back up to where I need to be with the bills and stuff. So I'm actually really excited for this and really happy that this is there for us and to be able to help the youth be able to get the funds that they really need for themselves. Because if this was available like a couple of years ago or back when I was homeless, I think it would have helped me become more stable and helped me get like food and clothing and shelter in a lot of different ways.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chris. I agree. This $1,500, $30,000, that can be a down payment on an apartment, security and rent. Like that can pay a lot of bills. That can fix a car to get you to work. It's a lifeline. So we'll go on to the next slide. Thank you.
Okay, so now that we have learned a little bit more about the Earned Income Tax Credit, I'm going to share about the Child Tax Credit. And the child tax credit was expanded for tax year 2021. And there are a couple of changes that were made to the child tax credit. It was expanded to reach more low and very low income families. So almost every family with a child is eligible for this expanded child tax credit. The amount of the credit was increased. It was about doubled from the previous amount. Previously, it was worth up to $2,000 per child, and $1,400 of that was considered refundable, meaning people would get that money back. And then the age requirement increased as well. So families with children up to age 17 are eligible for the child tax credit. One of the unique aspects of this expansion is that there were advance payments that were provided in 2021. So some people got advance payments that were worth half of the full amount of the child tax credit. And when people file a tax return this tax season, they'll get the remaining half. If they didn't receive advance payments and they are eligible for the child tax credit, when they file their taxes, they'll get the full amount. So for the tax credit value, it's worth up to $3,600 per child for children ages 0 to 5, and up to $3,000 per child for children ages 6 to 17. And there's no minimum income requirement for the child tax credit, which is a little different from the earned income tax credit. And the monthly payments in 2021 started in July and continued through December of 2021. And we also know that money is available through economic impact payments or stimulus checks. So these payments started to be issued in 2020. There were 3 rounds of stimulus payments, and young adults may be eligible for all 3 rounds. This could be up to $3,200 or even more if the young person has a child. So this is a significant amount of money that we want to make sure that people get. The stimulus payments, they don't count as income for any means-tested benefit or program. And youth can access stimulus payments by filing their taxes. When they file a 2021 tax return this year, they'll be able to get the 3rd stimulus payment, any missed 3rd stimulus payment, along with the earned income tax credit and the child tax credit. If someone missed the previous 2 stimulus checks, they can still get them, but they will need to file a 2020 tax return to do so.
And I think we're going back to Anna. Thanks so much, Roxy.
Thank you, Roxy and Jenny. So here at JBay and with all of the organizations, we're so glad that there's so many of you who are asking questions in the chat and asking, how can I help this young person? Or I'm a CASA and what do I need to do? Or I was in foster care. I was formerly homeless. What do I do? And we have a lot of information about how to support youth in filing their taxes. We know that it can be confusing or complex, and that you need support going through this process of filing, getting all of your documents together, getting accurate information, and getting to a free appointment. So what we want to help young people do is connect them with a VITA site. That's a local volunteer site that they can receive more individualized attention by IRS trained volunteers and get a quality review and make sure it's done correctly and for free. There's also Get Your Refund, which is an option that we'll hear more about next. That is virtual online, or you can get an appointment, file for yourself, and do it all for free. So if you go to the next slide, I can talk about some of the options that are available across any state. And then here in California, JBay has 6 sites that are dedicated to serving current and former foster youth, as well as some other options that we can follow up during Q&A. So the first thing to connect a youth with a VITA site is actually to locate one in your neighborhood or in your area. So there's a zip code finder here where if you click on this link, it'll show you all of the local sites. And this is what it looks like. So if you enter your zip code, you can do within 5, 10, 25, or 50-mile radius, of that youth address. And you'll see it'll come up with a public provider of a free tax site. Now, you can call that number or look at the address and see, sometimes they don't list the hours you might need to call, and sometimes they tell you when their hours are. And then it also tells you if you need to call and schedule an appointment, or if it says not required, you can actually just drop in with all of your materials. But the most important thing is that youth get support on the front end, learning what documents to bring to that appointment so that they can complete their appointment in that session and not have missing documents. So we also have some tips later about how to do that. But check out the VITA search tool, find the location in your area, and help youth get to a free appointment. Next slide. And Roxy is going to tell you about Get Your Refund.
Thank you. So another option for connecting people to free tax filing assistance is the website getyourrefund.org. Get Your Refund provides online assistance that can include phone contacts. So they have a platform that people can use on their mobile devices. They can also use it at a computer and file their tax returns without actually going to a physical location. Get Your Refund was created by the nonprofit Code for America in partnership with the IRS, and they use IRS certified volunteers of the Volunteer Income Tax Assistance Program to help make sure that tax returns are completed accurately. The site will connect individuals to these IRS certified tax preparers, and they also offer other filing options depending on someone's level of comfort and their needs. And so you can check out this website to connect people to getyourrefund.org. So I'll turn it back to Anna.
Sorry, I just had to come off mute there. Thanks, Roxy. So we're actually working with Get Your Refund here in California as well, with six sites are using either VITA and 2 are using Get Your Refund. So it's a great platform, and I've been volunteering to help youth file on it. It's fantastic. I recommend directing youth there. The one thing that we do before they go to their appointment is help young people get their documents together. So we have a list of VITA documents and information. So basically a state ID, because the VITA sites need to make sure that you are who you say you are. And the only way they can do that is with some form of identification. You also provide your address that is going to be on file with the IRS, a social security number or individual taxpayer identification number. And what that means is if you either qualify for a social security card or number, or if you're undocumented or a resident, you can still get some of your money back and qualify for some credits by filing with an ITIN. The bank account and routing number, or like a debit card number, account and routing number, is important to use direct deposit. The identity protection PIN, that's if young people have been a victim of identity theft, the IRS will have provided them with this, and they need it in order to file again. So we just need to make sure that we're entering that before we submit that account. So those are the personal documents that you get together. Now, some partnerships between agencies like homeless serving agencies or child welfare agencies, it's very common for youth to have some missing documents. They might need a CASA's help or an adult supporter's help in recovering any documents or providing proof of social security number or a child welfare letter as an exception to say, we know who this young person is and we know they're missing a document, but here's the information you need to file. And those partnerships have really helped overcome some of those barriers. The other thing that you'll need to gather up is all of your employment earned income documents. So if you had a job where you're a part-time or full-time employee, they'll give you a W-2. If you were a contractor or self-employed, you know, DoorDash, TaskRabbit, Uber, sometimes public speaking can be common for foster youth or kind of some side jobs. Then you'll have a Form 1099. If you experience unemployment, it's a Form 1099-G. And if you have a savings account or any interest accounts, your bank or financial institutions, or if you're a college student, you'll have these other forms. And we have all of that information in that checklist at the bottom of this slide. And we can put that checklist in the chat for you. It helps explain how to get your documents together. Next slide.
Thanks so much, Anna. We're going to move to a couple of special issues and that we think a lot of our audience probably has interest in. So I want to start, Aubrey, with you. If you can tell us a little bit about young people who are in foster care, extended foster care, can they file on their own?
Absolutely, yes, they can. Many people who are in foster care or those who've aged out of foster care are eligible for these tax benefits, for these tax credits, and the eligibility is the linchpin to whether or not they can, right, and that they can actually receive these tax credits, or whether or not somebody else can claim them as a dependent under the tax code. Tax laws can sometimes be complicated, but I think one of the things that are very important for young people to hear, because we hear this word dependent a lot when we're working in the child welfare system, people will talk about like whether you're in the dependency system. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about is whether or not someone's claiming you as a dependent. So meaning like I'm the person who's taking care of this other person. If somebody is claiming that on their taxes, then the young person will have issues. They won't be able to access these tax credits. So you're not likely to be a dependent of someone else. Somebody else should not be able to claim you as a dependent if you've been out of a foster home or your parents' home for more than 6 months. Then you should be all set. If you run into an issue, you want to make sure that if you think that somebody may have claimed you as a dependent and that was incorrect, you want to make sure that you get some additional help for that, because these credits should still be yours if you haven't been in living under somebody else's house for more than 6 months under a parent's care, right? If you're renting a room, that's totally different. But if somebody else is kind of being the caretaker for you or has been your foster parent for 6 months, then you may not be able to access these. But otherwise, you should go for them and make sure that you get help if you need it.
Great, thanks so much, Aubrey. And Roxy, can you tell us a little bit about, I think Chris mentioned this, there's a couple of situations where a young person might be claimed by someone else or someone filed under their name. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the actions a young person can take?
Sure. So it is important to note that, yes, this does happen sometimes, and it doesn't have to be an obstacle to filing taxes. So when someone learns that they were claimed on someone else's tax return, they can still file their own tax return. The youth will need to file their tax return by mail. So this is a paper return, no electronic filing, because when you file, the return will be rejected. So when the tax return is sent by mail, when the IRS receives it, it will trigger an investigation. The IRS will know that, okay, this person is filing, someone else, they can see that someone else has claimed the young person, and so the IRS will send a letter in the mail to request more information. That letter will go to the youth, and the letter will go to whoever filed and claimed the youth as a dependent on their return. A youth can call the IRS identity theft hotline to report identity theft as well, and that number is on the screen. And a youth can also talk to their attorney to get assistance in dealing with these issues. They can be complicated. Sometimes youth may know who claimed them as a dependent, and sometimes they may not be sure who actually claimed them. So getting assistance from an attorney, if available, is also helpful.
Great, thanks so much, Roxy. And then kind of one last issue that I know comes up a lot is just understanding how a young person's immigration status might make them eligible or ineligible for some of the credits we talked about today.
Yes, so all of the credits don't have the same requirements, so this is really important and useful to go over. If a youth has a work authorized Social Security number, and that includes youth that are DACA participants, they can claim any of the tax credits that we've talked about: the earned income tax credit, the child tax credit, and economic impact payments, also known as stimulus checks. If a youth does not have a work authorized Social Security number, they cannot claim these credits for themselves. However, they may be able to claim the child tax credit or the third stimulus payment if they have a child who has a Social Security number. And in this case, they will still need to file a tax return. And on that tax return, they will need to indicate what is their taxpayer identification number. If you don't have a Social Security number, you have to get an individual taxpayer identification number, which is also known as an ITIN. So there is an application process for that, and that number is required to actually file a tax return. If you were to file a tax return and just leave that number blank, the tax return would not be processed. So these credits are available to some households, some people that don't have the work authorized Social Security number. If it's one of their dependents, they may be able to get it, but they wouldn't be able to get it for themselves.
Great, thanks so much, Roxy. Really appreciate that. And so we're going to now move into, mentioned at the beginning of the session that we have a lot of great materials that we hope will be really useful to you, both as someone who might be an adult supporter who's going to help a young person file or connect them with help, or if you are a young person on the line. So I'm going to turn it over first to Barbara Duffield to talk a little bit about a couple of tools that we hope people will find useful.
Hi, everyone. So on this page, we've got a summary of some of the resources on our site that were collectively made by the organizations on this webinar and others. The first is an EITC screening tool, which is a really cool way to click through for young people to see if they're eligible or not. Started with the idea of a flow chart, but flow charts, given the complexity of taxes, are quite a bit. So this is just basically an eligibility prompter where you can click through and answer questions and find out what you're eligible for and get connected to other online resources. There are also some email templates for informing social services, education personnel about these changes, and links to resources. So if you're working at an agency and you want to let, for example, school counselors know, or particularly financial aid and higher education professionals that have a particular role for young people from foster care or homeless who are students. There's a frequently asked question that goes over a lot of the questions, not all of the questions in the chat box, but many of them, and a summary of changes. And then finally, with regard to the definition of homelessness, on the Youth Connection page for young people, written by young people, is a walkthrough of the broader definition of homelessness that's used in this law and also by education agencies. And with that, I
Great.
turn back, I think, to Anna.
Yes, thank you. So as mentioned earlier by Chris, JBay and our youth advocates work together to create a number of resources that are available to you. And Jenny and the team here helped us turn our California documents into national documents that could be used in any state. So we have both a national checklist, guide, and a benefits fact sheet, as well as a California version, because California, like many states, has a number of tax credits when you also file your state refunds. So if you take a look at these resources, the first one is the checklist, which was really designed sort of like, think about like a workshop or a worksheet, where if you were to sit down with a young person or a young person by themselves were to look at this, by the end of that document, they'd have everything ready to file their taxes. And if they were missing something, it actually explains what do you do to get that missing document, or, you know, how do you retrieve a W-2 if McDonald's never sent it to you, or you want to go back to your 2020 return like what Christina did and get your missed stimulus checks and get your missed child tax credit. You might need to call an old employer. It talks you through how to do that. The other document is a guide which summarizes and has some really nice tables about all of the credits we've talked about, all of the different stimulus checks, and it really explains those. It also explains where to file for free and how to get a free appointment. And it explains, I think even more than that, like just how to help young people file. And it goes into depth about these special considerations. So I'm seeing in the chat some questions around, what if they don't have a bank account? What if they're undocumented? What if they're homeless? How do we do this? Those special considerations are detailed and written out in the guide, so check that out. And then the benefits of filing, that slide that Aubrey went through earlier about decreasing poverty, helping children. You know, what we do know from research is that just telling young people to file and that there's money available doesn't always lead them to want to or know how to file. But, you know, these are some other good reasons that might be appealing messaging to them. So just check out that fact sheet. We also have it available in Spanish, and we have these resources coming in Spanish soon. They're being designed right now. So we'll have the Spanish versions of these up on our website shortly. So thanks, everybody. Check them out.
Great. Thanks so much, Anna. I want to pass back to Roxy to talk a little bit about the Get It Back campaign.
Thank you, Jenny. So the Get It Back campaign is dedicated to promoting refundable tax credits and free tax filing assistance. And we have a range of resources about all of the tax benefits that we've talked about today. And we created 2 toolkits to focus on the expansions to the Earned Income Tax Credit and the Child Tax Credit. So you can find those at the first link. They include different resources for and templates for communicating with audiences, whether it's through a newsletter or on a website or through social media. We also have some specific resources on our website to address common questions. And one of the ones that have been visited a lot is what to do if you didn't get your stimulus checks. So the second link includes information on what steps to take if you didn't get your first, second, or third stimulus check. And then finally, we talked about getyourrefund.org earlier as a resource to help connect people to free tax filing assistance. It's especially useful if you find that there is not a VITA site in your area. This provides a way to still get that quality and that attention that VITA sites provide through a mobile format.
Great, thanks so much, Roxy. And you reminded me, I mean, Get Your Refund is a great resource. VITA sites are great resources. There is enough free tax help out there for young people. So we really do want to urge you to use those resources because they are available. And so thanks everyone for hanging in with us. We're going to get to questions in a second, but we did want to just, if you are leaving this session and want more information about benefits of filing your taxes, we wanted to share another event tonight hosted by Congressman Danny Davis, and it's going to focus on maximizing tax credits for young people, but also focus on kinship caregivers. So just wanted to give you that information. Hope you can join as well. We also wanted to thank Representative Davis, who was so instrumental in making sure these credits for transition age youth are available and is such a champion for transition age youth. So wanted to put that shout out in there. And now we do want to move to questions and understand. Barbara Duffield, do you mind I know we've got a bunch in the question pane. If there's a couple maybe you want to identify that we haven't gotten to yet for the panel.
Sure. I'm going to try to kind of bunch them. There's a question, does the IRS need a public agency to verify homelessness for youth who were not in foster care, who are not staying in shelter? So this sort of gets to the larger issue of what kind of documentation might be asked for young people. So I'll let our expert panel respond.
Sure, I saw that question, and the truth is that the IRS hasn't fully disclosed all of their inner workings because, number one, they want to avoid any fraud situations. But what you do need to know is that you don't need any of these up front. You just go ahead, you file your return like every other taxpayer, you check the box that says, I qualify for this. And the IRS does have partnerships with other federal agencies like child welfare and all of the homeless service providing agencies that have to report federal information. There's a way on the back end that they can check that. And if not, if for some reason someone's not in that system, but it's still true, that young person might get a letter from the IRS. And if so, they would call the IRS and respond within 30 days and still get their refund. So the truth is, on the upfront end, let's go ahead, file, get it in, and you have all of our contacts if this comes up. If they do get a letter from the IRS, and here at JBay, we have IRS partners with the 6 counties that we're working with who have been fielding questions and helping us support when these things come up. So just go ahead and help young people file. They don't need anything different than any other taxpayer when they file their return.
And Anna, when you say kind of, file, you want to make sure they check that 27A is one of the kind of key boxes that would identify you. Is that right?
That's right.
Thanks so much.
All right, here's another question. For youth who are not sure if they got stimulus checks, is there a way to find out or confirm if the stimulus checks were sent out to them?
Yes, actually, let me pull up that website because there's this system called ID.me, and it's with the IRS, and there's a way to verify. I did this with a youth the other day. He had gotten his, all 3 of his, but for his son, had gotten none, but we needed to prove that before we finished the return. And so you go to ID.me, you set up an account, and there's 2 ways to do it. You either upload, there's a list of documents that can verify your identity, plus like some IDs or Social Security cards, different forms of government verification. And you can do that just by uploading it on your phone or by doing like a video call with the IRS verification person over the phone. Now, we did this in California on a Thursday night at like 8 p.m. and someone was still there to verify this young person, which is like way late after hours for East Coast, right? So we were like, let's see, but it totally works. So I'll put that link in the chat, ID.me, with the IRS.
So if a minor is not a parenting youth, is it worthwhile for them to file? There's no VITA site near me. That's the
I would
question.
say
Oh, sorry,
yes,
can you
absolutely. Oh, sorry, Anna. The question was if the young person's not a parent, is it still worth filing and there isn't a VITA site nearby? I think we would both nod yes. Right,
Yeah.
that the accessing these benefits, you know, as long as they're over the age of 18, there are still benefits that are going to be on the table that are made available for them. So you don't have to be a parent in order to acquire the credits. There are some special credits that are just for parents, but I wouldn't let that keep you from a couple of $1,000s, right?
Yeah, and the thing that I would add, Aubrey, and for that question, there might not be a local VITA site. We know there's a shortage. We know there's a desert. We know we need more. We're working to build more capacity. But Get Your Refund is kind of the solution there. If you can get that young person to a computer or internet on their phone, you can set up a getyourrefund.org account on your phone, on the computer, and you can start to fill out that information, and those volunteers will call them. You can do a drop-off appointment, virtual appointment, and so that's really a solution when you don't have a VITA site near you to go to. Use Get Your Refund.
If a youth was in a youth shelter and is unaccompanied without parental support, but is not currently homeless, but is very low income, would they qualify for EITC? So this is, I think, asking about, you know, when was the youth, at what point did they meet the definition of an unaccompanied homeless youth? And how does that interact with these provisions?
I think if you go back to that slide, there's the definition of an unaccompanied homeless youth. And we're going to send the slides out to everybody. So I think, again, it's pretty broad. It's a broad definition. If you think this applies to you, it probably does. You know, as someone who experienced homelessness, one time I was like doubled up, like couch surfing, all that kind of stuff. I didn't necessarily understand that counted as homelessness, if that makes sense, until I was older and read some of these definitions. But it did, you know, and I would have qualified for this back in the day if it existed. Like Chris said, if I knew about this or it existed then, that would have been nice. So just take a look at that broad definition there and encourage people to file.
And if they met the definition in the tax year 20, like let's say they're not homeless today, but they were.
Actually, yeah. Okay. It's not limited. It's at any time. It's not limited to 2021. So it's at any time if you experience homelessness or if you're at risk of homelessness. So take a look at that. Again, like I said, I'm saying it's pretty broad, and I'm encouraging people who work with youth experience homelessness to reassure them that this really is for them. Because if they're getting services in a homeless service agency, have been to a shelter, have gotten this like rental relief or assistance programs, or have been on the street living in their car, like all of that, file your taxes, this is you, check that box.
Yeah, and I can understand that it can be a little bit confusing, right? Because the foster care involvement or experience has to be at age 14 or older in order to be considered an eligible foster youth. But being an unaccompanied homeless youth doesn't have any type of like recency or a certain age attached to that experience.
Let's see, other questions I'm trying to see which have not been asked before. So we're confirming that, here's a question. Any low-income, this is from any low-income worker age 19 or older may qualify for the EITC. Homeless foster youth have special eligibility in a few cases.
I think we might be.
Or if they are full-time students younger than 24, absolutely for the EITC if you are a low-income worker. So there's an expert in our chat box.
So Barbara, we lost you a little bit. Do you mind saying that one more time, because it's so important? Because I think we lost your audio for a couple sentences.
Sorry about that. Any low-income worker age 19 or older may qualify for the EITC. Homeless and foster youth have special eligibility in a few cases if they are 18 or if they are full-time students younger than 24. Absolutely apply for the EITC if you are a low-income worker. And then there's also a question, again, if somebody was not homeless at all in 2021, but they are homeless now, do they still qualify?
I think we're all saying
Sorry,
yes, right?
I was, yeah, yes. I was answering another question in the chat box, but yes.
And does full-time student mean college student?
Okay, so yeah, it means college student, not high school student. So there's these couple of questions in education credits on the tax return that ask, are you over 18 and a full-time student at an eligible education institution? And that usually means post-secondary or a career technical college or career like a you're going to be an electrician, you're going to be all those kind of special programs, and you can look up if your education institution is qualified for those.
Two minutes left, Jenny, turn it back to you.
All right, and thanks everyone. Thanks to all of our presenters and thanks to all of you in the audience. These are some really great questions. I hope we got to most of them, but as Barbara and I think everyone said, we will, I'm just gonna quickly get to our contact information, but we will be sharing the slides with everyone. We hope that you will use the materials. The materials really were meant to be able to increase kind of all of our outreach and support to young people. So hope you will check them out, use them, and let us know if there's other things that we can develop, again, to get the word out and help young people. Again, thanks so much to all of our presenters. We really appreciate all of your expertise. Definitely appreciate the great participation of the audience. Hope you will, as we said, if you want to hear more about taxes, hope you will join Congressman Davis tonight to hear more, learn more, particularly about kinship caregivers, which we didn't cover today. So I think that's a great addition. And again, thank you all for joining today, and we hope you will help youth file their taxes this year and in the future. Thanks, everyone. Barbara, I'm not sure I see where the end webinar button is. I don't want to do anything wrong.